And welcome to the Sabi Sands, to Djuma and Arathusa. We find ourselves in an abnormal situation today. Both of the vehicles have broken down, sadly, but there is good news. Marc and Wiem, who are more mechanically minded than any of the rest of the crew left in camp at the moment, have been hard at work on Zanele, and hopefully it won't take too long for us to get her up and running this afternoon. Marc's just freshened up after spending hours working on the vehicle. It's extremely hot day today, so it hasn't been the easiest working conditions, but we have managed to establish where the problem came in with Zanele this morning, and it appears to be one of the fuses that helps to pump fuel from the fuel tank to the engine has blown, and after removing the fuel tank we've managed to establish where the problem is, and we've got a plan to fix it. It's kind of a bush mechanic plan. It's not a perfect fix, but hopefully myself and Wiem will be able to fix that up within an hour or so, and then we'll get Marc back onto Zanele and out exploring with you guys this afternoon. In the meantime though, what would be great is if you could send as many questions through. Marc, like I said, will be taking over and fielding all these questions that you may be asking shortly, and basically it's a good opportunity for you to ask Marc any questions that aren't necessarily relative to what he may be showing you or what is relevant to a specific drive. So any other questions that may come of that you may have been wondering or wanting to ask him over time. He's an extremely well experienced and knowledgeable individual when it comes to the bush, and he's a good person to fire questions at because he does know the answer to most of them. And those that he doesn't, he will have good insights into any potential theories, I'm sure. I'm just going to have a quick check now and see if there are any questions that have come through yet. For those of you that are new, the best way to ask questions on Twitter would be to hashtag Safari Live, and on email questions@wildearth.tv. Now let me have a quick look. Okay, well, hello everyone. There have been no questions yet, but a few people showing concern as to what happened to Zanele, and yes, it is a bit heartbreaking, well, very heartbreaking for us being stuck in such a beautiful place but not having the vehicles to show you around. So it is frustrating for us as it is for you, but hopefully there is a plan to get you guys out there later on this evening. Yes, we've had 2 days in a row now of towing vehicles back to camp from morning drive. This morning's tow was quite interesting because Marc was in the middle of a thick block of vegetation when the vehicle did decide to cut out, so we managed to find him, and then towing him out with all the obstacles of trees proved quite interesting, but we managed to get back to camp and there were no major issues getting back, which is good. Yes, Win Lin has just mentioned, is Marc considering a new career, barefoot mechanic? I think he already fits that title, but below the barefoot bush professor. But yes, Marc is a talented man in not only the wilderness, but also in the mechanical world, it appears. And we've got a few other little bits of advice and concern as to the vehicles. Some people are grabbing some coffee, getting settled in, so you do that. We're just outside the final control now. We've been focusing on trying to get the vehicle fixed, so we just had a few minutes to set up this little spot with which to chat for you. So the final control is not far behind us, the hub of where all the technical aspects of Wild Earth are controlled from. And yes, Kim has mentioned taking a cue from Marc and not wearing shoes today. I am indeed. Marc is showing me the benefits of exploring this place barefoot, and on a hot day like today it certainly is good to be wearing as little clothing as possible. The plants in the foreground of the camera shot I cannot see too well, but I'm guessing they could be these succulents. These aren't entirely indigenous to this area. They may be indigenous to different parts of southern Africa, but we are in a somewhat of a garden. The owner of Djuma lives in this area where we are now, and he has been doing a bit of manicuring of the garden, so there's just a few succulents that are here, but we wouldn't typically find these out in the reserve. They kept in the garden and large areas, so they manicured plants. Okay, we've got people saying hello all the way from Germany, and a few people also asking if both vehicles are broken. If they've just tuned in now, folks, just to recap, sadly yes, both Djuma and Zanele are out of action, but we are 99% sure we've established what the problem is on Zanele, and myself and VM are going to head across back to the workshop now where we've been working on it, and hopefully it won't take us too long to get the vehicle back in working order, and hopefully allow Marc to take you out this evening and show you a little bit around after fielding questions. So get those questions coming through, folks, for Marc. He will be taking over from me, and then myself and VM will head down back to the vehicle and continue working on it, and hopefully it will not take us too long. But like I say, we've got a limited mechanical tools and equipments and jacks that are required, so we are just making plans with whatever we can, but we should hopefully be able to get it back up and running. So yes, and Marc has rejoined from the mechanic pit. Marc, I'll leave you to it, and
thanks for filling in.
No problem, buddy.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, found a flower. Me and flowers, but
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Marc, we'll leave you to it and hopefully get that vehicle up and running as soon as possible.
And if you need anything, we can swap, or we can. But I'm sure we'll be able. You guys are going to do a good job. And let's get going.
Cool. See you later, everybody. Folks. Thank you.
The little baby sausage tree with the little baby sausage tree flower. Hi, everyone. Boy, what a day! What a day! What a day! Very unusual to find a sausage tree flower at this time of the year, but this is a garden sausage tree. It's actually, there are two next to each other. Three. A little grove. In fact, we're sitting in the shade of these sausage trees. And strange to find a flower this late in the season, but well, who knows? Maybe because of artificial watering it happens. So my flower for you ladies today, the sausage tree flower. Very beautiful flower. Scott has filled you in, and this is how we're going to be for now. We're thinking of actually getting the camera onto the vehicle at the workshop, so you could maybe see what we're doing, but we're working underneath the vehicle, so it would, all you're really going to see from there really is going to be the other vehicles parked in the workshop and nothing happening because we're underneath the vehicle working on it. I've been underneath the vehicle for most of the morning, or since we got back. We got back from drive pretty late because Jason and I were stuck out there for a while. It had nothing to do with the little hole the wheel was sitting in. That was just a joke really, and I guess I was tempting fate, and I was playing with karma when I was bragging about Land Rovers earlier on in the drive, because I was saying how fantastic they are. But somehow, for some reason, we burnt out a wire that takes the power to the fuel pump, and in order to find that fault took a long time, because ultimately what we had to do is we had to strip almost everything underneath the rear of the vehicle, skid plates, torsion bars, all sorts of things to get the fuel tank out. And when we finally got the fuel tank out, we seem to have found that there's a burnt out wire that runs the fuel pump. So what we've decided to do is we're going to run a lead straight from the battery to the fuel pump for now, just because that's going to work for now. We'll be able to put a relay, and we'll be able to modify that once the weekend is over. There's not much we're going to be able to do now. Unfortunately, what we're going to need to do with Djuma is pretty much the same process, and it's quite a lengthy process to get the fuel tank out, because there are all sorts of skid plates and things underneath that have to be removed first. I can't hear anything, so I'm not plugged in, so I don't have an earpiece. I'm not plugged into final control. I just want to mention that at the moment, for the time being, I'm not going to be able to get to the computer to get to the Wild Earth emails unless I can get a laptop, and I should have brought my laptop here, but it won't last very long. But I've got this little toy, and this is going to get me Twitter, I hope, if I can figure out which page that I need to be on. Maybe that one, and then I can get some questions on Twitter, and we'll chat about things and try and pass the afternoon until we're ready. Scott and Wiem are going to try and put things back together again. I took it all apart. I hope they're going to find all the pieces to put it back together again. You know what it's like when you take things apart and you put it back together and there are a bunch of nuts and bolts left over. I'm hoping that's not going to happen. I'm hoping that all the little nuts and bolts, they're not little actually, these are big nuts and bolts because it's holding very heavy equipment. There's the tow bar support. There is a stabilizer bar underneath the rear, well, that runs along the rear axle. There are a bunch of things that had to be removed that we need to put back with bushes, and really all it is just nuts and bolts. As complicated as it sounds, it's really just a bunch of nuts and bolts that had to be taken out to drop the fuel tank so that we could see the top of the fuel tank where the power line runs into the fuel pump. And I'm hoping that that's going to sort things out. I'm trying to find my way around Twitter on this little machine of mine so that I can get questions and address things. I just apologize, I guess, that we're not out there on a drive. There are some interesting things that happened last night. Funny enough, I wish I'd known about it this morning, but then it would have changed our morning. You know, in hindsight, we had a fantastic morning drive. We ambled around. I found some leopard tracks near Treehouse Dam, and I was hoping that we would find one of the young boys that made those tracks. And eventually, after some time, we made our way to Gari Dam, to the Djuma waterhole, and found the young quarantine male, and we followed him for quite some time, deep into the bush. There was some really pretty hairy, well, not hairy, but it was getting quite difficult to follow him. Some very thick stands of young monkey orange, which is very spiny and very spindly, not very easy to drive through. One has to be very careful not to damage these trees, and when we drive over them we try and straddle the trees with the Land Rover so that they sort of pushed over, especially the young ones. They get pushed over by the chassis, and then after the vehicle is moved over they tend to spring up, even if they might be leaning a little bit, but they're still alive and they still tend to, they're still fine. Had a wonderful morning with quarantine male. He climbed up some termite mounds and he was clearly looking for prey. I mean, he was definitely on the lookout. Not very thin. He had something recently. You know, he was looking very, very healthy, and my guess is that he was on the hunt. It was overcast to begin with, and as we were wearing on during the morning, the sun started burning the cloud away, and finally towards the end of our drive it got very, very sunny and very, very hot very, very quickly. And with that heat came the humidity, because we've had some good rain, so our humidity level is very high at the moment. And he moved off to get some shade. I was actually following because it was the shortest distance between me and the nearest road, which is where he started moving. And I thought, well, it's convenient to actually follow him, because I might find where he'll settle down for the afternoon, and there maybe for the afternoon drive get back to see him this afternoon. There was a time when he stopped behind a marula tree, and I was idling, and he stopped behind a marula tree, and I stopped as he stopped because I didn't want to leave him just yet, and suddenly the Land Rover cut out. I think I tempted fate when I was boasting about landies and things earlier this morning, and I guess it's a karma thing coming back to me. I must never put down other... Yes, hello child, I'm on camera. Can you... One of Yuri's children, four-legged children. He's a Jack Russell. We could even open the gate and let him come and sit with me. Maybe not now. Jody on email. Wild dogs endangered. What's being done? This is so funny. You got to bring it to me, Jason, or throw it to me. Close your shirt. Put shoes on. That's a flashcard. This is my cue, by the way. I don't have this is my teleprompter. I don't have access to email, so Jason just went in to see if there was an email from anybody. I'm guessing this might be Jody from New Mexico.
Sydney.
Oh, from Sydney. Australia, Sydney. I guess there isn't any other Sydney, is there? Hello, Jody. I'll get to your wild dog question. I'm going to keep it on my lap. I'll get to your wild dog question. I'm just telling stories first. This is fun. This is fun, actually. If we can't do a drive, at least we don't have a message up on the screen that says drive cancelled. So this is the next best thing. Zodwa. Okay, never mind, we're trying to discuss the fate of Yuri's dog. Should we muzzle it? No, we'll never do that. I'm only joking. Yes, we just need to close the gate, and then little one. I think you've seen them on camera before. I forget their names, and I'm bad. Peter used to know these dogs very well because he used to babysit them a lot. What are their names, Odwa?
Twin.
Who?
Twin.
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 Quinn.
Twin.
Twin spot.
Twin.
Yeah.
Twin, and that is
Bruna.
Bruno.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bruno's a bit boisterous. Come, Twin, come sit with me, pup. Come here. Come and sit. Come on. Come here. We've got people watching you. Come. Come. Okay. Run around. Wants to jump, but Twin's getting old. They're going to sniff around. So I'm going to still try and multitask here with the dog, trying to find Twitter, trying to get my phone working. There we go. There's the baby girl. Hello. And how do I get to hashtag Safari Live? Come. There we go. Okay. How's this for Wild Earth? We've never done this before. Find Twitter for me, please, because I'm inept. Say hello to the camera. Look, there's the camera there. No, not me. There, that one. There. Oh yeah, Bruno's jealous. Bruno wouldn't fit on my lap. These are Yuri's dogs. Yuri's away for a bit, and the dogs are being looked after here by Zodwa. They're being babysat, and they've got a huge... I think these dogs are spoiled. Look at this. Look at this fat tummy. You are spoiled. I know. And I'm sure you're missing your mum and dad. Oh, gonna use yours.
Yeah, just tap all
tweets
every now and then.
Oh, I've got that on my phone. But that's fine, you can figure it out. I suppose it's enough about everything. So essentially what we're trying to do now is we found a way to bypass this burnt out wire on the fuel tank. Or rather the fuel pump, which is running the fuel pump. Unfortunately it doesn't have a mechanical pickup like my Land Rover. It needs an electrical pickup. And so we've bypassed it for now. We're going to have to do some further work on it during the week, maybe if we can get someone in to help us put a relay on it. But it's going to work. It's going to have to work because it's going to get us back to Manuleti tonight. So let's see, let's go through. Some people don't have anything. Kim saying loves puppies. Larry, it's not a wild animal, this. I'm not petting wild animals. Jennifer, hello. Doris have got a corgi. And Doris's corgi is commenting. Wild dogs. Redwoods, no, we're not driving. Andreen, no, we weren't driving over redwoods. There are no redwoods in Africa. From Boston, hello Paul. Guten Tag, Jürgen from Deutschland. Guten Tag and wie geht's, Jürgen? Nice to have someone from Europe. I guess I'm going through it slower than they're coming in. But I'm new to all of this. Hello Wisconsin, hello Sandra, Wisconsin. Is there a drive today, Gail? This is the drive today. Here's my steering wheel, here's my passenger. Why are you so hot? Is it that hot for a Jack Russell? You should be able to deal with this, girl. You've been here a long time. Maybe you want some water. Do we carry anti-venom kits on the drives? Michael, hello Michael, no we don't. Anti-venom kits can be a little bit tricky because you actually have to know a lot about the snakes and about the different types of venom of the snakes. You can't, in fact, anti-venom is only really applied to the neurotoxic venom snakes. Cytotoxic venom you can't apply on an anti-venom, and the hemotoxins, which are the boomslang and the vine snake, are only kept by certain hospitals around the country. So the only real anti-venom that there is that for the neurotoxic snakes like the mamba or some of the cobras maybe. But the cytotoxic venom, which is tissue destroying, the worst thing you can do is apply or introduce a neurotoxic anti-venom. So it's very difficult. Often in the anti-venom kits you might find that you're only getting maybe 10 or 20 cc's, and normally for any snake bite you might need at least 40 cc. So it's very difficult, the whole anti-venom thing, and the best thing to do is to call in the paramedic. There are paramedics in Hoedspruit that are very well trained in it. But the most important thing about snake bite, and this is I want to reiterate, is that you have to know what snake has bitten you. Because in this part of the world, yeah, I know my lap's not so great. Eat grass. In this part of the world we have a combination of different snakes, and there are neurotoxic, which means it attacks the nervous system. Your nervous system shuts down, and you need artificial lung and heart CPR, basically, cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Cytotoxic venom is tissue destroying. There's nothing much you can do. There's cortisone injections, and you have to treat it symptomatically mostly, and try and limit the amount of venom going through the system by applying pressure bandages. In fact, pressure bandages are one of the most important things to do. You know, never does a tourniquet. Tourniquets are old-fashioned, and tourniquets lead even further troubles. As far as the hemotoxins are concerned, the couple of hemotoxin venoms that we have, they are so slow acting that in some cases, some people where some people have been bitten by a boomslang, for example, they've had enough time to be able to go all the way back to Johannesburg to the hospital, because I think it takes about 24 hours or somewhere, excuse me, somewhere around there to start affecting your lymphatic system, your blood system. And now this has been Jason, I don't know, your special little I don't know, these things, you've got to connect the dots in a certain way. It got locked. So I'm locked out. I'll address this question. From Sydney, from Jody, wild dogs are endangered, and what's being done? Quite a lot is being done. I mean, there are some breeding projects in some areas of Africa where wild dogs have been pretty much extinct or pretty much wiped out, and they are trying to reintroduce them. Education, although despite education, there are still a bunch of farmers out there that when they find wild dog, they do eliminate them, which is very, very sad. And unfortunately, the way the laws go, if your stock, your livestock is in danger, you have every right to act on it. South Africa's equivalent of a tsetse fly, it's called a clegg. Fly away, go bite someone else. There is a lot being done. Have a look at the Endangered Wildlife Trust. Have a look at the Mazda Wildlife Fund, in conjunction with Mazda and I think it's the Endangered Wildlife Trust, or I'm not too sure of these bodies. I'll have to look up. 33 degrees, 92 Fahrenheit on the palm of Jason's hands. This is our teleprompter. On any surface you can write on. You need this back. We're having fun. We're improvising. That's what live TV, that's what live is all about, is improvising and being able to... Oh, by the way, Jason.
Yeah.
Your phone's locked. Because I was talking too much. Is my phone not working with Twitter?
It is.
Okay. We'll get back to Twitter. It's going to take me a while to figure this all out. Normally I have an earpiece and I get everything sent to me in my ear, so it's quite unusual for me to have to do this for myself, which I think is great, because then I can answer the questions that I want to answer, not what the director wants me to answer. Quite a major job, removing the entire fuel tank. I think I might have mentioned that, so I'm hoping we might be able to get things up and going by the time, by the time we're getting close towards the end of drive. Look like I'm sitting on an angle. What are the seasons in South Africa and temperatures? From Cindy, Wisconsin. Seasons are pretty much just opposite yours, Cindy. When you have winter, we have summer. When you have spring, we have autumn. It's directly opposite, because we're in the southern hemisphere. Fix my chair. Gail's telling me to fix my chair straight. I'll dig that leg in. Is that better? Am I sitting straight now? Thanks, Gail. Ooh, where did I go? Fine. No, now I'm in the wrong. In the wrong view. Trending. Why am I in trending? What is trending? I must have touched something. These are just following. There, okay, notifications I guess. No, those are tweets.
Magnifying glass.
Timeline. Magnifying glass.
Hashtags for live.
Hashtag. Okay, I'm learning. Got to find hashtag first. There we go. Oh, it's automatically there because it's been searched before. I'm learning. Getting there. All tweets. Ellen in Illinois has a pic for you to see what I mean. I don't know what you mean, Ellen, but I'm sure it's early on. Kim, Bruno, let Bruno out. Let him also run around and come and say hello. He'll probably knock me off a chair because he's a bull terrier, and he's a bull terrier. Come here, Bruno. Come here, Boykie. Oh no, he just wants to go chew on buffalo skulls. He doesn't even want to come and talk to me. What's up? What can I get you? Hey? What's up? You want some water? I know, I don't have any with me. I also want some. In a bit, there's a swimming pool. You've got a pond and a swimming pool and a lot of places to drink. But you are hot. You can dig and lie in the sand. Like some dogs, they scrape the sand open and find the cool wet sand. Kim is saying the afternoon's a mess. I don't think it's a mess. I think it's going just fine. Am I sitting for Betty? Am I sitting straight now, Betty? And Gail and Veronique is seeing hobbit feet. Yeah, I do have kind of hobbit feet because I live barefoot and I've got all sorts of things. Okay, questions from B. Wilson. Do the monkeys like that we saw yesterday or maybe the day before need to worry about birds of prey taking them? Yes, they do. There are some birds of prey that can. There's some of the bigger eagles that can take them, although one of the primary raptors, one of the primary primate hunting eagles doesn't really live here. It's called the crowned eagle, but they do, and they often do fall prey to some of the, like tawny eagle, maybe steppe eagle, maybe that's about it actually. Those are the only two eagles I can think of that are likely to maybe threaten them in this part of the world at any rate. But in other parts of South Africa where monkeys live, the vervet monkeys, there are the crowned eagles in some of the forests, and the crowned eagles are specialists in monkey hunting. Excuse me, I've been under the Land Rover full of dust and grease and I haven't even cleaned my eyes yet. I wondered why it was so hazy, but it's not, it's just my eyes were dirty. That's better, nice and clear. Ellen, I'm not sure. Ellen is saying that last night could have been quarantine. Seems to have very dark feet bottoms and up the leg and back and front. Is this unusual? No, Ellen, it's not really that unusual, but what it is that it's been pretty wet, and being pretty wet, what happens is it wets the fur. The fur appears to be a lot darker because it sticks closer to the skin, so I'm imagining that that's possibly what it was that his feet were wet with the wet grasses. Tony, yeah, I've got itchy feet too. I think I've got some sand fleas biting me. That actually would make no difference if I had shoes because it's on my ankles and my calves. My credit card's maxed out already, Tony. Can't buy a new vehicle. Hello, Gail from Ontario. No, now's not the time for the... This is... Who's that from? That's Bobby. Hi, Bobby. I must go up. Are these old ones? These are 7 minutes ago. Are they newer ones? Okay, I've got to go... Okay. I'm going to go back just a little bit. Alright, I'm going to have to get to the new... There. Oh my gosh, I'm so far behind. I guess I'm going to have to go through this a little bit faster. I'm sorry, folks. I'm sort of going through them one by one, and I guess I better not do that. Can African wild dog be domesticated, Maurice? No, they can't. Great to hear from Jennifer that they finally put a ban on wolf hunting. That's fantastic. Thank you. Oh. No idea what the Wahlberg's eagle was after. And Diane. Hi, Diane. Betty. Do the monkeys get into the lodges? They do. They know where the food is. They know where all the sweet things are. So the monkeys do. They become a problem. Did Scott ask me about the go-away bird? No, but I'll find out from Scott what that's all about. That was from Doris. Thanks, Jennifer. Coming. No, this is not a team pet, by the way. This is Yuri's. These are Yuri's children. Bruno, yo, Bruno. Not interested. A couple of buffalo skulls that have been put out here that are from, and he's chewing on them. Why not? I suppose give a dog a bone, you know. Buffalo skull's a little bit extreme, but whatever. Jason, people want you to pull up a chair and introduce yourself. People like Paul. Laura from Alabama. Hello, Laura in Alabama, and Gail, Jennifer, Michael Morrow. Any relation to Telemorrow? Clay Morrow. Who that? I'm off center. I should be off center. Okay, more up at the top. Moira from Long Clawson. Hello, Moira. I'm wondering if Becky's with you. If not, well, if she is, just hello to you and big kiss to Bex. If it's the right Moira. Have we had any baboon invasions? I know we had this question the other day asking about the Gowrie gang, and I don't know. I have no idea, but there isn't a baboon to be seen. They used to sleep in these fever trees up here at Yuri's place, and they were studied by Graham Cook for a long time. We used to spend almost all day with them at times, and I came back here now after being away for 3 years, and I don't know what happened to them. I can find out, I suppose. It's a mystery. It'll remain a mystery, but there is no longer a Gowrie gang. There are no longer baboons here. Patty wanting to know if I celebrate Christmas or a different holiday. Not in the sense that everybody else does. I guess Christmas, no. I celebrate Christmas because all of my friends who celebrate Christmas, so I celebrate with them. My family will be celebrating Hanukkah at the moment, lighting candles. I'm kind of spiritual. I don't really living out in the bush to follow the religious route. I have to tell you a story here. You know, I come from a family that one side of my family there were rabbis and things on that side of the family, and I remember maybe 25 years ago at least sitting down at a dinner table with one of my father's cousins, the rabbi, well, my cousin, I guess, who was actually the rabbi for that particular town and the synagogue that we were at, and I was sitting next to him for one of the I think it was even Passover, could have been even Passover, which is a dinner when you're sitting at a rabbi's house. It lasts until midnight because of all the rituals and everything that we have to go through. And I asked him about how he felt that I lived out in the bush and I couldn't attend synagogue and I couldn't really observe the very strict rules of modern day Orthodox Judaism, which is where I come from, I suppose, in some ways. I had a bar mitzvah. And he said to me, you know, Mark, you're actually closer to God where you are than most of the people that come to synagogue, because most of the people that do only do so on the religious holidays. So I guess in some ways I wouldn't say vindicated, but I felt that what I'm doing because I love nature, and in my world I superimpose the word nature wherever the word God is placed in any Bible, because nature and God to me is the same thing. It's around me, it's part of everything, it is part of the energy of the universe, it is everywhere. And I wish that the rest of the world would maybe find that kind of philosophy, and we wouldn't have all these religious wars and the kind of things that we're having now. Bruno, come and say hello to everybody, please. I know you're an independent mind of a dog, and you have selective hearing. Hello? Hello? It's worse than a cat. Hey, boyki. Okay, when you say hello to me, I'll ignore you too. The way I roll, dude. So yes, that is what I celebrate. I celebrate life every day. I celebrate the fact that I can breathe and live another day and spend another day with elephants and be in nature and be a part of nature. And I'll give everybody else the freedom to celebrate and do what they want to do and live the way they want. Where are we? We're going to find some new ones, because now there are 120 new ones, and I have to try and sort through them while I'm talking to you, which is fun. Oh, I pressed the wrong button again. There, the problem with these touch devices, and this was fairly new to me, is that my fat fingers touch too many places on the screen at one time. But I think I got it now. What do giraffe teeth look like, and how many do they have, from KP? Great question, KP, and I think the only way I could answer that is maybe to find you a skull. That reminds me, I can find a skull here at Yuri's. And if you can give me a few minutes off camera, maybe I can get a dog to sit on the chair, or Jason can sit on the chair and introduce himself and chat to you for a minute. Giraffe have no upper incisors at all, like a number of a lot of the herbivores, a lot of the bovids, what do we call the ruminants? That's what one was looking for. A lot of these the herbivores that we have still got sand everywhere. I was under the jigger, so I had sand everywhere, and I had to quickly have a shower, otherwise I would have been sitting here in Greece. But they also have a lot of premolars and molars, all of their chewing teeth, very broad chewing teeth to chew the vegetation that they need to chew. So it'd be nice to be able to show you. Funny enough, there was a jawbone still where that giraffe skeleton was. Then the other day I picked up a few giraffe bones, and I know exactly where that is, and I'll be able to go past there on my next drive or on another drive and pick up one of those giraffe jawbones. I'll be able to show you exactly what the teeth look like. It's still very well explaining it. Hello, boy. Explaining it. Come and sit. Hi, Becky in the UK. Missing you here on drives, on camera. Moira saying that Becky is there. Colleen in Manitoba. You can have as much of the sunshine as you want, Colleen, although I don't need enough rain here. Chris, hello Chris. Chris the Rogue. Hello Chris. Was I concerned that Quarantine Male was too close to the vehicle? Not at all. It was very exciting. I mean, he came right towards me, and then he sneaked around. I couldn't even see him. I don't even think Jason could see him when Jason was on camera. No, Jason nodding his head, or rather shaking his head. Nodding means yes, shaking means no. But Quarantine Male walked right behind the vehicle and then came out the other side. And not concerned, it's not so much that I was concerned, but there's a proximity thing that happens. I mean, it's all very well when you're sitting on a termite mound 10, 12, maybe 15 feet away, that's one thing. But he comes towards the vehicle and looks straight into my eyes, and I know he's not going to do anything, or at least I'm pretty sure, because I can't really know for sure, but I'm pretty sure he's not going to do anything. I've got an open vehicle, and sometimes I've even been in a vehicle without a door, and that's a little bit more frightening sometimes. Frightening is not the word, it's exciting, it's thrilling, It is awe-inspiring. It is fantastic to be that close to a wild leopard, but know that I'm not influencing him. I'm not dictating, or I'm not in charge of the situation. He is. By coming close to the vehicle, he is choosing to ignore the vehicle to a certain extent. He could have walked any other direction, but he chose to walk up to the vehicle, around the back of the vehicle, and then come out again on the left-hand side and then continue. So it's not really a case of being concerned, it's just a case of extreme. I guess that's what sometimes what bungee jumpers, people who jump out of airplanes, or people who do extreme things, I guess that's the kind of thing that they feel. A little bit of an adrenaline rush, but an incredible moment. And it's those moments, I think, that's what we do, or why we do what we do, is to have those moments. Where am I going? Hello. Rosalie. Great to hear from you. This is Rosalie just mentioning that, talking about the subject we've been talking about, existential concerns. Jolene, talking about drones. I don't think I've mentioned drones at all, but wouldn't it be a danger to birds in flight and scare some animals? No, it's an interesting subject actually. Jolene, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Joellen, I'm sure that's how it is. Joellen, that makes more sense actually. Drones, I have a friend who's actually out from the UK at the moment. We've flown a drone at my place. We've flown it with elephants. We had one day when we flew it with it, and we didn't know it, but there was a pair of African hawk eagles in a marula tree very close by, and I don't know if they attacked the drone or what happened, but the drone went into its own mission, went higher and higher and higher, and then went in a very, very steep arc and crashed. Might have had something to do with the eagles. But I think with birds, avoidance techniques, I mean, you look at starlings that fly in flocks of thousands. We have the most numerous or numerous species of bird. We have the red-billed quelea here. It's a little finch that is probably the most abundant bird on the planet. I mean, it was probably like the passenger pigeons in days gone by. The red-billed quelea flies in flocks of millions certain times of the year when they do accumulate, and that entire flock can fly not only in one direction but move at exactly the same time. But when they come to drink, they don't drink from the edges of the water. What they do is they fly in this big whirlwind of feathers, and they actually drink on the wing, some of them actually falling into the water. And when you get millions of birds flying together, you know that their avoidance techniques are phenomenal. When you look at, you can stand on any bridge now in the wet season, any bridge going over a river, and there will be invariably be swifts and swallows that are nesting under the bridge, and the way they fly in and out from that bridge, and sometimes in very tight formation, or just randomly, just hundreds of swifts flying in every possible direction. They've probably got better aerial avoidance techniques than any of our most sophisticated technology. So for them to avoid a drone is peanuts. Okay, recap. Thank you. Q card. So no, if anything, it does make a little bit of a noise. There was a time when we were with a herd of elephants that were already stressed out by all the vehicles, because it just happened to be at the time of the day when a lot of the contractors were moving out of the reserve, and we flew the drone over a herd of elephants. I don't think they were concerned about the drone. I think they were just concerned. It was more the stress that they had experienced from the vehicle. But I've got drone footage of flying with elephant and giraffe and things, and when the drone is high enough, they don't even know it's there, and they are totally relaxed. So I think as long as one is not flying at too low an altitude with a drone, it's fine. It depends on the drone too. A friend of mine, Adam, who's flying these drones, they're not off-the-shelf type of drones. These are very specialized drones that carry specialized equipment, and we're hoping that maybe we can assist with anti-poaching and do some things with them to assist in any way we can with conservation in different places, because it's sorely needed. But there's definitely an application for drones, and somehow the way the animals have become used to the vehicles that are driving around, and they don't even look up when there is an aeroplane. Personally, I don't think that the drones are going to be too much of a problem. I think the problem will come in with unscrupulous drone users who might fly a drone right next to an animal, and that will certainly, undoubtedly, affect the behavior of an animal. Unfortunately, you can't monitor human behavior. It's the way people, it's like the way people behave in their private vehicles in the Kruger National Park. You can't control what they do, even though there are rules and there are very strict guidelines of how to behave. There will always be some idiot out there that wants to push the boundaries. Unfortunately, the nature of the human being. Durban. Gosh, it's nice to have someone in Durban, local people. This is going out to Don and Marty in Durban. Hi to you. I'm glad to have you on drive with us. It's great to have you. I wonder, are you related to Scotty in any way? And Arlene, who's just learned how to tweet to say hello. Hi Arlene, how the birds doing? That's a good, and also Chag Sameach to Arlene too. Joe Ellen, will I write a book? That's a question I've been asked so much. I don't know how to do that. So we're going to some new tweets to see what we've got coming in recently. Just that recap that Jason asked me to do. We're not having a drive at the moment because we have had some vehicle issues. And while it might sound like excuses or something, I don't know, I can't articulate this, but we're living in the middle of Africa. We're living in the middle of the bush. We don't have mechanics available to us, especially this time of the year. I mean, we're on sort of pre-Christmas long weekend right now, so to find somebody that can come out and help us it's physically impossible. We're so far from the nearest town or city. I haven't had a deeper look into Jigger as much as I've had into Wendy this morning, or Zanelli, the vehicle I was driving this morning. We were with the Leopard this morning. We'd been with the Leopard for a good more than a solid hour, I think maybe even an hour and a half. And as I closed down and said goodbye, we were following young quarantine male. We must have been following him for about maybe 5 or 10 minutes because he happened to be moving in the direction I needed to go to get to the closest road. If I hadn't have followed him, I think we would have found ourselves stuck in a much deeper part of the bush. But at some point while we were following him, the engine cut out, and what I've established is that somehow the fuel pump, the main lead wire that runs the fuel pump burnt out. Somehow at the multi-switch or the multi-connector on the fuel pump. Now that took a long time to dismantle all of that to find that problem, and the solution to that problem is running a wire to bypass the original wire. And fortunately for us, the fuel pump is still working. So if we bypass the original wire and we manage to set this new wire in place that it's not going to be damaged too badly, we can get it running at least enough to get us through into the week so that maybe we can have somebody look at it. None of us are mechanics. I'm a naturalist. My life is the bush. I do know some mechanics. I drive a 35, nearly 36-year-old Land Rover that I've managed to maintain for the last 15 or 16 odd years. So I'm not a stranger to mechanics. And when it comes to undoing nuts and bolts, that's pretty easy. Especially when it's putting it back together again and making sure that all the nuts and bolts go back and not having any spare pieces left over. What has been a little bit of a conundrum to me, though, has been these are modern engines. They are computerized engines. They're actually BMW engines that are fitted into a Land Rover, and they're factory fitted. And I don't know anything about BMWs. The closest I ever came to a BMW is when my dad owned one many years ago. It was a little 320 or something, and I never even looked at the engine. I open up the hood of a modern car, and it's all an unknown to me. I don't see any of the pieces, the mechanics, the parts that I'm accustomed to. I mean, all I need is a 13 spanner and a 10 socket and a pair of pliers for my Land Rover, and I can fix anything. So it has been a little bit of an uphill and a huge learning curve, trying to figure out what could go wrong. I spent a long time under the vehicle this morning looking for wires that might have been pulled, trying to do my own diagnostics because it is such a task to extract the fuel tank, to get to the fuel pump and all the wiring on top of the fuel pump. It's far better to go through all the other options beforehand to try and eliminate everything else so that becomes the final option. And that was at about 2 o'clock this afternoon that we decided our last option and our only option was to pull the fuel tank, and lo and behold, that's where the problem was. So for this afternoon, as beautiful as the weather is, as fantastic as it is, unfortunately we're not out on a drive today, and I'm going to do my very best, my utmost best, to also pull out the fuel tank of Jigger and try and have a look to see why Jigger is not working, because there is a different issue with Jigger. Jigger's had another problem that is probably also related to the fuel line and the fuel pump and the electrics that are involved in that. And with these modern engines, it's all computer controlled, and it might even be the main ECU, which is the engine computer or engine control unit or whatever it stands for. So we're stuck here sitting in the garden. I've got Yuri's children sitting next to me. They're getting bored. They thought that there's another little fence inside the garden. We're inside the fence of Yuri's house, but there's another little fence just next to us, next to the carport, that excludes this little area. Otherwise they've got, I'd say it's probably a couple of acres to run in, but they want company, as dogs do. And now Bruno even wants to go back in. He's tired of being out here. He's chewed on his bone, which is a buffalo skull. I guess he hasn't found anything that exciting on it, and he's getting bored. He wants to go back. He's not a TV dog. Bye, Bruno. Last time you'll be on TV. And you twins? Hello? You! Talking to you. I'm a cat person. Love dogs. Have I ever formed a bond with a wild animal? That's from Bobby. Hi, Bobby. Bobby. Yes, I think I have. I think if I have to think back to my days in Tanzania in the Selous Game Reserve, and the elephants that I used to live with, there were a couple of elephant bulls that lived with me permanently. One in particular, whose name was Joseph, and I should have had some foresight, and I should have brought some photos, because I did find some photos of him. Finally, all my stuff that had been down in storage down in the Cape finally came out. So all my personal belongings are finally in one place after many years of being split up in many different places. Everything except my beloved bonsai trees, unfortunately. But I managed to find some wonderful old photos of my friend Joseph, and I know for a fact, just from our interactions, that there was some sort of a bond there. It never became a physical contact bond, but it was enough that I could speak to him and he could rumble, and there were even times when I could walk with him as he walked, and he would accept me there. There were a couple of other elephants. There was a little elephant called Frank, and there was an old man called Alfred who we nicknamed Darth Vader, and only one that Darth didn't chase. Otherwise he tended to chase anybody he saw, but I guess that's mostly because most people ran away from him, especially the staff that was with him. I don't know what that was. I guess also to some extent the animals that I live with at home. Another clegg biting me. These are South Africa's answer to tsetse flies. They're like a horse fly. Here, catch. Flew away. Because of my being at home, I live in the Timbavati Game Reserve, and there are a lot of animals around me, and I can't really say I have any bond with any large animals, or that the lizards and the snakes and and the hornbills and the waxbills and some of the smaller creatures that live around me, I wouldn't exactly say it's a bond as much as it's a comfortability. It's a comfort zone that we've all established, that they know I'm not going to do anything, and I know that, well, they can't do anything, but they pretty much accept me in their space, and I can move around freely amongst them without them being scared or flying away or scuttling away as lizards do. Julie was asking me to tell you about my home. It's a little bit that I can tell you. Do we have weaver birds this far south? Yes, Diane, you have to follow us on our live drives when we back out again. We've got a lovely weaver bird colony nesting at Treehouse Dam, and they are building their nest, and they're actually nesting at the moment. It's wonderful, wonderful watching that whole process. Tall, slim plant in the foreground. Oh, these are called mother-in-law's tongue. Who is that? Betty saying they call it snake plant. That was Jan that was asking. Oh yes, Jan is saying it's mother-in-law's tongue. This this variegated one that we have. Or maybe is this one in shot? And what about that one? Let me stand up. This one looks like a local variety. This is a cultivated variety, this variegated one. This isn't, it might be indigenous, that's sort of been hybridized with something. The scientific name is Sansevieria. Here's a geranium, by the way, or a pelargonium. But it's also, these are planted. These are all garden plants. Some of them are aliens actually. Some of them shouldn't be here. And back to, how much does a baby Ellie weigh? I guess, I don't know, maybe 200 pounds? I don't know, never tried to pick one up. KP wants to know what steps one takes to become a safari guide. I think one of the most important things is don't just become a safari guide just because it looks like fun. You want this little girl?
Yeah, I want to go to.
Oh, you want to go home? Okay. Bye bye, twins. Go and have your dinner, girl. Little boy. Sorry, I thought it was a girl. It's a boy.
Boy.
He's a boy. Twin for a boy. Okay, you could get a better name. Okay, I should have looked. I didn't look. I'm not in the habit of looking. I guess I saw his feminine side. So being a guide, if you have the passion and you have the drive to become a guide and you want to stick with it, the first thing to do would be to maybe find one of the guide training schools. There are a number of them here in South Africa that train guides. Some of them are very short courses. Obviously the longer the course, the more intensive the training and the better qualified one will be. But I would have to suggest that getting some sort of formal qualification would be better, because that would open up so many more doors in different countries than just perhaps in the safari industry, for national parks, becoming part of national parks. You know, being a guide, one doesn't really work with animals as much as one works with people, and one is showing people around the bush. So being a guide, although I have the passion and I'm a naturalist and I love animals and I would love to work on that side of things, I don't have a tertiary education. I haven't followed the academic route, and having not followed the academic route, I can't get into nature conservation and work for the National Park Service. Despite my knowledge, despite my passion, despite everything that might be positive about me in my life in the bush, I don't have a little piece of paper. And I remember my parents might be watching, and Dad, you were right. Yeah, Mom, you were. It's the way life goes. Your parents are always right when they're trying to tell you things. You might only learn later on in life. But I was urged to follow an academic route, and I didn't. And so I was subject. My last resort was working in the game lodges and becoming a guide. And I'm lucky. I'm very lucky that over the years my experience has led me to be able to work in other areas of conservation and do other things. But when one is a guide, one is not really working very close with conservation and very closely with animals, because your day is filled with entertaining guests and taking guests around. So there's a very distinct difference between people who really want to be in the bush for the bush and people who just want to be guides. One does need a lot of passion and understanding to be a guide, because you can only really be a good guide in that sense. But if you really want to be part of nature, then the best route would be to do a nature conservation diploma, or even better, to go through university, do a BSc in zoology or botany or ecology, and then maybe, like Tara, take it a little bit further, get your master's degree, do a PhD, do a thesis, and then you can pretty much write your own ticket, really. But I think it largely depends on what area of conservation, what area of this wonderful world you want to live in. Back to some new tweets, because we got to keep it new, we got to keep it fresh. Wamuk. Okay. Okay, dog what? What la? With the dogs. Okay. As long as you're happy with what you do, indeed. That's all you have to be concerned with in life, as long as you're happy with what you do. Any chance of saying hi to Pippa and Yuri? Yes, hi Pippa and Yuri. Or do you mean having them? No, they're not here. Pippa and Yuri have gone away. I forget where Yuri said he was going. I forget. Saw him last week. Who was my mentor from Barbara? Who was my mentor? In the beginning, it was Wayne Saunders, who's now with Wilderness Leadership School down in KwaZulu-Natal. There was Wayne Hampson, who's now got a place called the Duck and Trout in Dullstroom. They were my mentors. Over time, Ian Player sadly passed away just recently. He wasn't a personal mentor, but he was a figure that I admired greatly, and I aspired to be anything like him. Would be, even if I could just aim for a fraction of what Ian Player has done or had done, I would do great. What about the Cape?
So here he is.
Oh, he's in the Cape. Here he's in the Cape. Thanks. My teleprompter said Cape. I wondered what context it was in. Getting something from the Sheldrick Wildlife Trust. Oh, that's why, because I'm getting all sorts of tweets from everywhere else. Let's go back to Safari Live. I do follow the David Sheldrick Wildlife Trust. Daphne Sheldrick is a wonderful woman. I did meet her sometime when I was back in the 90s, I think it was, the late 90s, when I was in Nairobi. And got to get back to, what's the difference between a ranger and a guide? This is from B. Wilson. I don't really know. I guess you could say the rangers nowadays, the guides are the guys that drive the Land Rovers around, and a ranger is a person who works for the national parks and has a particular area that he has to cover, to maintain, to monitor, and to report on. So I think it's more a case of the rangers, park rangers nowadays, as opposed to safari guides. There is a bit of a difference. In my younger days, we were just called game rangers. There was no such thing about guides. Marla wanting to know what other parts of Africa I've been, what's the difference in wildlife and ecosystems. That would take the rest of the afternoon. It's something maybe I can talk about on drives, because then I can show you some things. But just to briefly answer Marla's question, Marla, I've been very lucky enough to live in places like the Okavango Delta in Botswana. Being in the tourist game and being the kind of person I am, the only way I've managed to get to other parts of Africa is to manage camps and to do guide training and to be resident naturalist at different places. And so there's the Okavango Delta, there's the Lower Zambezi in Zambia on the Lower Zambezi River. There were several national parks and game reserves in Tanzania, and I've been in a couple of places up in Kenya, a couple of national parks up in Kenya. I think that pretty much covers it. Oh, and down in the Cape, funny enough, having just mentioned the Cape, I ran a small game reserve down in the Cape. Well, it was more a nature reserve than a game reserve, because there wasn't that much game. We had caracal, and there was leopard and baboon, and some bushbuck, cracebuck, mountain reed, or yeah, I think they were reedbuck, and wonderful bird life, but wonderful floral kingdom. The Cape Floral Kingdom is probably, one of the most diverse floral kingdoms in the world, next to the Amazon. So for me, just to be there for a couple of years was fantastic, because it gave me an idea of how things are different, or how different it is to the bushveld that I've known most of my life. Patch Birmingham, I don't know who Patch Birmingham is, Chris. Maybe one of the Birmingham males. Speaking of which, I believe they were actually up on Sandy Patch last night. A friend of mine came in from Arethusa coming back here last night, and he said, long after we went home, the Birmingham males were up near Sandy Patch. There was also a report that Mvula also walked down Vuyatela Access Road. Didn't see any tracks this morning. I guess we were sort of tucked in under this tarpaulin coming in because of the rain, and there was rain, would have washed away this spoor. Where am I? I'm still getting tweets that are not Safari Live. Betty, what other animals are in other parts of Africa that are not here? The lesser kudu was one. And if we had to go into the birds, it would also, that would be, it's an entirely different bird book, the East African bird book. So we won't even venture into that because they're completely different types of birds. But as far as animals are concerned, or the mammals, up in Tanzania and further north, one gets the type of waterbuck known as the Defasa waterbuck, which is a different species to our local waterbuck. Our waterbuck have the white ring around their rump. The Defasa waterbuck don't have that white ring around their rump. Sorry, I get distracted by things when there's a vehicle driving by. In Botswana there were lechwe up in Chobe, and in the Okavango Delta there were Sitatunga. Sitatunga are the same family as the kudu, the bushbuck, the nyala. They're very similar looking but very unique in that they live in that wetland habitat. Dik-dik. Oh gosh, the dik-dik up in northern Tanzania going up into Kenya are tiny little antelope. I mean, they're one of the smallest of the dwarf antelope, the little dik-dik. And the Sunni is another very small antelope, a lot smaller than our steenbuck and our duiker. What else? I'm trying to think. What else? Different type of giraffe, different type of ostrich. The wildebeest are slightly different up in Selous. They have a white chevron on their nose. And I don't know if you remember last year in Thornybush, we had that herd of wildebeest in Thornybush, and there was one female that had a white chevron on her nose, and that was very strange for me, because only a place I've ever seen that is up in Tanzania. So it's obviously maybe a recessive gene down here that is still within the gene pool, but it's obviously not needed here. Gosh, I must think about it. Maybe in the middle of a sentence I'll just think of something and I'll digress and add something else to that. James, hello James, nice to hear from you again. James is also a long time viewer. How much is our petrol per litre? I know we're off the subject, but it is. I believe your fuel is getting really, really low. I can see here in Kansas City going down to 185 a gallon. Well, let's see. Let's try and work that out. We don't buy per gallon. We buy per litre. We're paying in the region of, I'd say, maybe $1. So yeah, you're really, really cheap, because we're paying in the region of maybe $1.30 per litre, and there's probably 4.5 litres per gallon. So multiply that by 4.5. That's how much we're paying per gallon here. So our petrol, which is your gasoline, is very expensive. Kadria, great for you. Volunteered as a nature interpreter at a local conservation centre and then went to get a BSc. Way to go, girl. That's the way to go. Have I seen Floppy Ear the hyena? No, I haven't, Deanna. I haven't seen any of the hyena. I was at the den a few times, haven't seen them. Joe Ellen wanting to know my first memorable encounter as a guide. And I think because it was memorable and because it was my first, I can answer that. If it had to be a question, what is my most memorable, I wouldn't be able to tell you, because there ain't such thing. There's no such thing as most memorable, because every single day something happens that sort of supersedes anything you've ever done before. And that is the wonders of nature, is that you can have the most exhilarating, most wonderful experience with something, and then the next day something comes on. It wouldn't necessarily be better, just different, and just wonderful in different ways. But certainly my most memorable encounter as a guide was probably the first time I was tracking lion on foot. And that was at a place called Ulusaba, long before it was owned by Branson, long before it became the, dare I say it, the monster that it is today. There was just 3 of us working there, and we were 4 rooms. It took 8 guests, and it was the most wonderful lodge to to have started my career. I had a lot of memorable experiences back home in the Timbavati prior to being a guide, because I've been around the bush long before I became a guide. But I think as a guide, it was when I first started going out on foot and actually physically tracking lion on foot. And I was with an old man by the name of Simon Masinga, who was my tracker, who was one of the best teachers I've ever had, actually. And I was young, I was green, I was wet behind the ears, and Simon knew this, he could see this, but he was intrigued with my attitude, because very much the same way as today, in those days I used to greet practically every animal that I drove past, and there, lo and behold, we found some tracks for the local pride at the time with 2 females and 6 cubs, and we were tracking them, and I can never forget, he saw them first, and they weren't too far from me, they were probably 30, 40 feet away, and they'd been sleeping, so naturally they didn't hear us, and they were disturbed a little bit. And while the cubs didn't really react very harshly, the 2 females stood up very fast, and they looked at us, and the heads went down, and the ears went flat, and he grabbed me by the shirt, he grabbed me by the, not quite the collar, but the shoulder of my shirt, and it was only afterwards that I asked him, why did you grab me by the shirt? And he said to me, well, just to make sure that you didn't run away, because we hadn't been tracking lion together, so he didn't really know how I was going to react. And of course what one doesn't do, especially in a situation with lioness and cubs, when they're getting a little aggressive, one doesn't run away from lions. You stand your ground and you back off very, very carefully. Thanks, Joellen. Yes, Betty, we are close to the lodge. Yuri's house is, well, we're at Yuri's house, and just behind me, back to just over my right shoulder, is the lodge. It's maybe about 50 yards away where the entrance to the lodge is. So we are very close to the lodge. And let's get to another 120 new tweets. I'm sorry, I'm going to invariably miss a few because I do take a long time. And Bobby wants to know why we would track lion on foot. Well, how else do you find lion, Bobby? That's the way we find things. You can't, when you find tracks and the tracks go off the road, when you're with guests, I mean, maybe we don't do it as much as because we have the vehicle and the camera, and we can't really leave the camera for too long. When we're out looking for animals, which is one of the reasons why we don't do that much tracking. Every now and then we do get out and sort of have a look to see where tracks go, and then we try to do a lot of guesswork. But whenever I'm taking clients out in the bush and we're looking for animals, it's very exciting to actually follow their tracks and find them by following their tracks. And they don't always stay on the roads. Very often they'll walk through the bush. And being a young guide at that time, my tracking skills weren't that great, and I relied a lot on Simon, and we found the lions. But the other question Bobby was asking is, what do you do when you find them? Well, generally what you do is you backtrack, you go to the vehicle, and you get in the vehicle, and then you bring the guests to the lions so that they can see them. Because you don't always, I mean, nowadays that I'm experienced, I actually sometimes even take the guest with me on foot, or I have done, so that they can experience the excitement of actually tracking on foot. But generally we don't tend to take guests with us on foot. It does complicate things if there is an incident, and there have been, not me personally, but there have been incidents. But generally one says to the guests, let's leave the guests on the vehicle, ask them to remain quiet, park in a nice shady spot that they can see birds and things, and one is never really away from the vehicle for very long. And it's not just lion, it's a lot of the bigger animals that are not necessarily going to be found from the road, and the only way to find them is actually tracking them. Unfortunately these days not very much tracking is done, because there's so many vehicles out in some of these reserves that it invariably somebody's going to find an animal and they call it in on the radio, and then the guides just converge on the animal because it's called in on the radio. So there is very little of actual tracking. There are a number of great guides out there that still do foot tracking, but generally a lot of the younger guys that are out here now that are just doing a 1 or 2 year stint as a guide, they don't even bother with learning about tracks. All they really do is they listen to their radio and they race around to the big 5 to show their guests the animals. And hi Barbara in New York, you're welcome. My knowledge is your knowledge, or my knowledge is your learning. I'm an open book. I love telling people about things, and I think what it is that I find nature, I just find everything so incredibly wonderful and amazing, and all I want to do is share that with everybody, and this is my medium to do it. Toronto saying, this is Bobby in Toronto, 89 cents a litre. That's, wow. Gee, I would even drive my Land Rover to visit my parents if it was that cheap. There's a parrot above us here somewhere. I was also just looking in these little sausage trees. I'm not seeing any other flowers. Very strange, there was one flower on the sausage tree. Adam in Boston. Hello, Boston, Massachusetts. Do big cats get affected by catnip like domestic cats? I don't know, Adam. I guess one thing I could try is bring some catnip into the reserve and sort of lay it down in the road when the leopard. Would be interesting to know. I think the person to ask would be maybe somebody who deals with big cats, maybe in a rehabilitation center. I doubt whether anybody's really even tried. Maybe they have, but I have no idea about that. Corin just signed in, sitting in a chair, not in the Jeep. We don't have Jeeps, Corin. We have Land Rovers. And I think I was tempting fate too much. Karma, whatever it may be. I was boasting about Land Rovers this morning, and we burnt out a wire on the fuel pump. So our Land Rovers are both down with electrical issues. And it's probably got a lot to do with the humidity and the rain and the fact that maybe we're pushing the boundaries a little bit too much sometimes when it is drizzling. That might also be it. We are so reluctant to go into that little shelter and broadcast when there's a drizzle. So it might have something to do with that, the fact that a little bit of water got on something. And all these electrical equipment, very dangerous to get wet. Mark Williams. Mark Williams. How about Ngorongoro Crater? I'm guessing, I haven't been there, Mark. Never been to the Ngorongoro. And Kim asking on the same note, is there any part of Africa I haven't explored which I would want to see? Definitely. Everywhere else I haven't seen, I suppose. Central Africa, I'd love to see the Congo. I'd love to explore the Congo Delta, the river. I'd love to go up to Gabon and Cameroon. I don't know so much about Egypt. I mean, I'd like to see the history, the pyramids, the history side of things, maybe the Nile, because it's the Nile. I'd love to go up to Uganda. I would love to see Malawi. And if Madagascar can be incorporated into the whole Africa theme thing, then Madagascar would be very, very high up on my list. Low battery, I beg your pardon, I've just charged the thing. Difference between big cat eyes and domestic cat eyes. I think perhaps one of the main differences is the shape of the pupil. I'm running out of battery time. Thank you. Maji Baridi, cold water. Thanks, Jason. You read my mind. Just what I needed. Listen to the parrot. We've got a parrot above us, somewhere in the sausage trees, or maybe in this round leaf teak. That reminds me, there's a round leaf teak flowering here. I wanted to go off camera for 2 minutes, go and fetch you a bunch of round leaf teak flowers, because we're not going to find any round leaf teak flowers out there because of the way the elephants treat the round leaf teak. They farm them. Dew Point Marketing. There's a bit of a plug. What about meerkats? They aren't in the Sabi Sands, are they? No. Oh, that's Moira. Sorry. Thanks, Moira. No meerkats here in the Sabi Sand. Meerkats, a type of mongoose only found in the drier western regions of the country. Did I ever meet Derek and Beverly Joubert while in Botswana? Not while I was in Botswana, funny enough. My brother-in-law worked with them for a while. I met them at my sister's wedding, if I'm not mistaken. That was in 1984. That was a long time ago. Because my sister and brother-in-law knew them very well. I've bumped into them at times. I remember I was visiting my brother down in the Cape one day. I had my Land Rover down there, and my Land Rover has a shuka over the seat. A shuka is a Maasai blanket, one of those red checked Maasai blankets that look like Scottish tartan. And I was parked next to this very, very fancy vehicle, Land Cruiser, I think it was. I don't think it was a Land Rover. At a little shop in a very, very small town near my brother's farm in the Cape. And it just happened to be Derek and Beverly. We had a long chat. But I don't know them personally, and they're wonderful people. I believe they're pretty busy up in Kenya, or southern Kenya maybe, northern Tanzania at the moment. Janice in Wisconsin. Hello Janice, wanting to know if baboons are as vicious as they look. They can be, Janice. Threatened, they can be, but certainly in defense of the troop, and when it comes to predators, they can be very vicious, even with domestic dogs, because they dislike domestic dogs immensely. Generally speaking, they can be vicious. Baboons have the longest canines of any meat-eating animal in relationship to size. They have exceptionally long canines and very, very strong jaws. They are big males, can be very, very vicious, very, very strong as well. And I guess I'll just have to run this thing down for now. Have I ever been to any national parks in the US of A? Is the last question I got. Thank you. And let's see, I went to Yosemite. I went to Joshua Tree. I love Joshua Tree National Park. I went to a lot of BLM land and a lot of wildlife areas. I joined up with the Bighorn Sheep Study in the Anza-Borrego Desert and Borrego Springs. I don't know if it was a national park, but it was just wonderful. It was desert, Southern California desert. Same as Joshua Tree, it was phenomenal. The Pinnacles, which is sort of near, I think near Ventura, sort of central Southern California. Pinnacles, which was stunning. Big Basin Redwoods, a lot of the parks around sort of the Bay Area and south of the Bay Area. I stayed in a little town called Aptos, which is south of the Bay Area, just sort of south of Santa Cruz on the Monterey Bay, and we went to pretty much every park we could find in that area. A lot of them redwood parks, a little bit of horse riding and a little bit of hiking. Did a bit of mountain biking once and we'll never do it again. Can't sit on a bicycle anymore, too old for that. See, I'll leave this alone, then it gets locked. Pardon?
Push the middle button at the bottom.
Middle button at the bottom. Oh, then I don't have to do the fancy jigsaw puzzle thing. All tweets. What kind of parrot? Teresa, those are brown-headed parrots. The only parrots we get in this region, the brown-headed parrot. I wish I could have gone to Yellowstone. Unfortunately, I got to Yosemite, and funny enough, it was the July 4th weekend. Of all times to go to Yosemite, it was July 4th weekend. And coming over, I think it's Tulum Meadows, from the entrance going down into the bowl, there was a lot of snow. I mean, it was hot, middle of summer, yet up at the top there was a lot of snow. I was dressed pretty much the way I am now, and I just had to go and run barefoot in the snow, but it didn't last very long because snow's cold. My feet can't take cold. Lev in Brooklyn. Shalom Lev in Brooklyn. Do I wear mosquito repellent? Sometimes I have to. I hate it, especially because of the DEET that's in it. And I guess I could find some citronella next time I'm in town. But even the citronella, I don't like stuff on my skin. But sometimes I have to because of the mosquitoes. And it's also one of the best ways of preventing malaria, making sure to prevent them from biting you. Lisa SRQ, tell us about the cats that come around when unexpected, with no defense and alone. What does one do? I don't do anything. I watch them. Sometimes, I don't know, at least I think it depends on what one is doing. You know, sitting in a vehicle is one thing, and being outside is a different matter. Not too sure what I mean, what you mean by your question. Whether it is sort of when one is at home or otherwise. Can we find a bush baby for Betty? Betty, I'll definitely try and find you a bush baby. We are out until just after sunset, and it's that moment that they're emerging from their holes and they're starting to go out and feed, sort of dusk, that crepuscular time, for want of a better phrase. And there's a very good chance that we might be able to find you a bush baby. Of course, the bush is starting to get very, very thick now, and that makes a difference. In the winter months, sometimes a little bit easier because bush babies don't have that many insects to feed on in winter, and so they feed a lot on the gums of acacia and some of the other trees. So when you find some of the feeding spots where they've scarred the trunk or scarred the bark of an acacia to force it to exude its gum, they'll return to that same point within their territory. And sometimes you get to know individual bush babies or where they nest, where they live. Can you use ash or earth to stop the biting bugs? Could perhaps, I suppose, if you mixed it with a herb like maybe a wild sage or a vernonia, one of the aromatic herbs, I suppose maybe you could. But one of the things that I do that I'll show you on drive one of these days, although it's going to be very, very hard to find it now with the humidity and the moisture. Elephant dung at the moment, because of dung beetles, is spread. As soon as it falls out of the elephant, it gets spread wide by dung beetles. But in the dry season, since there aren't any dung beetles, when elephant dung is deposited, it comes out as a bolus, and that bolus dries up because there are no insects to act on it, and then because there are no insects to feed on it, the birds actually don't open it up and dig into it to find things. So very, very seldom does it become disarticulate or spread out. And it's very, very compact, and when it dries out a lot, the fibrous material and the leaf litter that you find in it, very, very rich. It smolders very nicely, so it forms like a mosquito coil, and I do that at home. I burn it a lot. I take a little clump of it in a little clay pot, and I just let it smolder and let the wind just waft it over me. It's actually got a very nice scent to it, because it's all, after all, I mean, it sounds pretty gross maybe, but elephant dung is just pure vegetation. It's 70% of what went in, even more, comes out. And when it's dry, it smolders nicely, and it causes a lovely kind of smoke that acts as a great mosquito repellent. But I am being bitten by something here. My ankles are getting chewed. On the other safari trucks, there is a male out in front of the vehicle. He is there to spot, or is he used as bait? Now, mostly as bait, I think. It's one way to get the leopard and lion to come out of the bush is to dangle someone up. No, I'm only kidding. That gentleman who sits on the front of the vehicle is known as a tracker, and he has tracking skills that assist in the experience of the guests on the vehicle. The guide who's driving the vehicle is relating or conversing with the guests a lot, looking at the road, looking for animals, and isn't necessarily able to follow the tracks as much as you see when we're driving our camera vehicles, when we're driving Jigger or Wendy, Zanele, we have to do everything ourselves. We do our own looking for game, and we do our own tracking. But for the safari guides and the safari vehicles, the tracker that's sitting on the hood, on the seat in front, is not only looking for tracks, but at night he's one holding the spotlight, finding animals. He's also making sure that there are no obstacles, and he is able to especially when off-road, able to follow the animal while the guide is trying to maneuver around bushes and trees and things. That's a very important function, the tracker, and there's a very nice bond that builds up between a tracker and a guide. I've had some wonderful trackers in my time that became like brothers, and you develop a wonderful rapport. It saves time at times when the tracker can get off the vehicle and go and track an animal, and you can sort of meet him on the other side of a block of bushveld, or you can go as the guide, you can take the vehicle further on, and the tracker can go through the bush tracking the animal. There are a number of different combinations of things that you can do, working as a team, that make it a lot easier to find animals for the clients or for the guests, depending on how what one wants to call them. Okay, now I'm lost. Now, maybe that button. That button. Okay, I got it. My magnifying glass. Mauricia, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, after all the stuff I've said about Land Rover and loving Land Rover as much as I do, I wish they would donate a vehicle. It would be such great marketing for them. but I do. I love Land Rovers to bits. No other vehicle will do for me. Okay, I think I need to go to that one. That one will get me some new tweets coming in. Do you want to sit here for a minute and say hello? I want to go fetch a flower and look for a skull.
I can do.
And Jason can answer a question or two. Meet Jason, cameraman extraordinaire. I'm going to go and find you something. I'll be back shortly.
Hi everybody, my name is Jason Stroud and
Where you come from and how you got here.
I've come from, I was born in Limpopo, which is where the Sabi Sands is. I was born about 2-3 hours drive from here, and I kind of grew up in the bush, kind of didn't. We had a piece of land, I don't know, it's about 2 hours from here, and this is called the Sopansberg Mountains, and this is where I kind of grew up. We used to go there very often, my family and I, and that's where I pretty much grew up on my dad's shoulders, walking through the bush, learning about a lot of these things. So the bush is really close to my heart, and especially being with Marc now, I've learned a lot more, and it's something I've come to love. I just love waking up here. I love just existing here. It's a fantastic place. We moved to Pretoria, which is a city close to Johannesburg, which most people would know of. And from there I went to all sorts of schools and matriculated. When did I matriculated last year. Matriculate is like graduate, I think. And then I applied for this job as junior camera operator, and this is pretty much a student or a way to learn how to do this through actually doing it, and I was very, very fortunate to get the job. And that's pretty much how I got here. But yeah, please bring on the questions. I'll be happy to answer a few of them for you somehow. Yeah, that's that. Marc's trudging around looking for things, and he never wears shoes. And he just, I don't know, stubbed his toe or stood on a thorn. But generally we just, you know Marc's up when you hear a few footsteps and then boops, ow! So, that's how we know if Marc's up or Marc's up to something. I don't know, you want to come back?
Yeah.
Okay, well it was very good to meet you.
Are you finished?
I don't know if there's anything, I haven't been asked any questions, which is upsetting.
I'm sure there are plenty.
Kim said hi.
Kim said hi. To me
Yeah.
or you?
Me?
To you.
Yeah, of course she said hi to me. Oh.
Kim, I'm jealous.
We can build on this. And then, I don't know, Michael Murray wants to do this. So I don't know how to use Twitter either, so we're in the same boat here. Michael Murray wants to know what kind of setup we have. Well, we've got a camera, tripod, and a straight BNC cable straight to the control.
Long BNC.
Long BNC, they go for miles, so that's how we did that.
I don't know,
If-
it's buzzing.
Another thing about Marc is I've never ever seen anyone who loves flowers so much. I've never seen this before, and he's actually taught me a few of them, and I'm actually beginning to understand. It's really, really interesting.
You don't know a plant until you know its flower and its seed and its leaf and its bark and its shape and everything about it. This is a cultivated hibiscus by the... Ow!
He gets the worst luck in terms of thorns.
Buffalo thorn. Who would have thought? Buffalo thorn here. That was my toe. Cultivated hibiscus that's in the garden. I was looking for the round leaf teak. There's a small tree that's flowering, but it's sort of out around there. Maybe we'll look through the fence one day when we're driving around, but it's a really beautiful yellow flower. But yes.
I got questions.
You got questions?
I got questions.
Okay,
So
go for
one from Chris. How did it feel being in the proximity of a leopard? You can stay here.
I'm going to go and check on things.
I like being close to you.
Tough, dude. Do without me for a minute.
Chris wants to know how it felt being in the proximity of leopards. It's incredible. I don't know if you saw yesterday, because sometimes I get distracted with the animal while I'm filming, so I forget to show you what I'm doing. That's just something I'm trying to get over. But it's so incredible. Yesterday he came down an anthill and he looked up at us, and he's got these big eyes, and it looks like he's looking. Sometimes it feels like lunch, and sometimes it feels like he's looking straight into you. He read your mind or something. It's really, I don't know, I've never felt like that before. But really, it's one of the most incredible things. The same as the lions, when we followed those lions with Alex, I think it was 4 days ago, I can't remember now. These days just blur into one. You can't explain the feeling, because you see it on TV, and I've been to a lot of places with lions that have been in closed vehicles or on the top of these big game drive vehicles, and you see them, but you don't feel that close. On our vehicles, we're really low down, because we want to give you that point of view. And they come and they walk past you, and it's just it's really, really incredible. Djuma marketing. This is Marc's friend. Well, anyway, do I do still photography as well as filming? I do photography. I'm trying. Peter Pretorius was teaching me an awful lot. Peter, I appreciated that. As well as Scott. Scott's really, he knows what he's doing. We've got different cameras, but he's teaching me and I'm trying to learn. Maybe one day I'll show some people what I'm doing, but now I'm still trying to get to I don't know, figure out. I'm trying to teach my little fingers how to work all these new things I'm seeing. Gail noticed that I'm not wearing shoes either. I also grew up without shoes on. I'm not trying to be like Marc, as though he is probably one of the most I don't know, incredible people I've ever met, but I know I've also never really worn shoes. A lot of people reprimand me because, I don't know, it's dangerous out here. We've got all sorts of things. Also stand on doors and stuff. I wear shoes more than Marc, definitely. No one wears less shoes than Marc. What's my favorite animal from Jules in the UK? There's the generic answer, which is you can't have a favorite animal because they're all so incredible. But I don't know. I'm actually gonna give you that answer. I really don't have a favorite animal. I really love kudu, the antelope, which you guys have seen. I don't know, they're really special, I think. They really gentle, they're really soft. Also obviously I love leopard and elephant. Elephants, being in the presence of an elephant is something that, I don't know, you can't explain that feeling either. It's really incredible. But yeah, anything that's new that I can learn about, it's my favorite animal at the time. When I'm sitting with it and I can watch it and I can see what it's doing, it's my favorite animal. I'm going to give you that as my answer. Then Zumi Mike, hey, wants to know how we manage to follow the quicker moving animals. If you watch animals for long enough, you manage to kind of read what they're going to do. You get into a certain flow, like the leopard especially. You just learned how to move with it. You kind of guess what it's going to do. Sometimes you're awfully wrong. You'll be moving left and it'll go right out of the shot, and you'll be like, thanks, now I have to fix it and people are watching live. But yeah, we just get into that flow, and then looking through the lens as opposed to looking naturally. The lens, I don't know, we've got the camera here and the animal's there, so we kind of, your hands just figure it out. What else can we talk about here? I know, I've got a feeling Marc's going to come back soon. This is his job. As much as I've enjoyed this is pretty incredible. What are my plans going forward? I got into university next year to study film and television. From Wingnut Rufus. I got into university next year. There were 40 places available and I got one of them. And I'm going to go study film and television and see if I can learn a lot more, so I can go from junior camera operator to camera operator to who knows where. I'd like to stay in this industry, I'd say nature. In the bush. I want to stay in the bush. The bush is incredible. It's where I want to be. If I can take cameras and people, I would love to share this with anyone I can. And then Lev wants to know if Marc's feet are tougher than elephant hide. Marc's feet are almost bulletproof at this point.
But the middle of the feet, between the ball and the heel,
yeah, the palm of his foot is pretty.
Still
That's where
soft.
it stands. I'm gonna leave you now. I have to go check the lighting, don't I?
Yes, you probably do, because we're changing lighting. Also going to get some sun coming through.
Yeah, the sun's going. With good to tea or speak to you all. And
I did something else too.
Okay, we'll see that. Good to meet you all.
And you'll see more of Jason. Didn't mean to chase him. I didn't chase him. Jason had to do camera work. So what I did was I just quickly went into FC, which is just behind us, because I know there are a bunch of you that maybe don't have Twitter and they've sent in a few questions to Questions of Wild Earth. I guess the next time we do this we'll be a bit better prepared. We were really trying to get the vehicle back together again so we could go out, and it really needed all of our hands on deck there, but we've decided that, well, this is what we've decided. And so I hope that Scott and VM are managing well enough, because we're going to have to use that vehicle to get home, get to our sleeping quarters. But there are a bunch of you that don't have Twitter, and so you sent in some emails, and next time I'll have a laptop here that I can maybe look at the emails as we're going along. So I'm going to attend to some of the emails that came through that that might have thought out there that we've been ignoring our emails. We haven't. We just we're not at. This is all an impromptu thing right now, as you can see, just to bring you some content this afternoon. I'm sorry we're not on a drive. I think I'm more sorry than all of. No, I guess you're not. You're more sorry than me, because we can't show you any animals. And this is the best we can do under the circumstances. I wish we could do better, but it's a wonderful way to get to know each other. It's a wonderful way to chat and answer some questions and get to talking. So for those of you who sent in some of the questions, I sort of looked through them briefly, and I've jotted down a few, and of course I'm paraphrasing the questions because this is my own type of shorthand that I've done. And Dale from Amarillo, Texas, wanting to know if this is going to be a permanent fixture now. Dale, unfortunately not. I don't know if Dale's referring to me or just Wild Earth Broadcasting again. But Dale, we are busy doing a project in conjunction with National Geographic Wild, Nat Geo Wild. We were part of the Big Cat Week in the beginning of December with Peter Pretorius and Hayden Turner, who broadcast to the US. Unfortunately, it was only broadcast to the US on live TV. Well, it was actually live TV for the first time, I think, broadcasting on Nat Geo Wild. And now the crew that are left here, those of us that are left, we're still broadcasting through Nat Geo Wild, but we are doing our normal Wild Earth stuff. And while Wild Earth is a permanent fixture in your lives, for those of us that work with Wild Earth from time to time, I would like to hope that I'm a permanent feature that features with Wild Earth when Wild Earth is doing stuff.
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Yes.
Battery might die. If it does, we're going to just swap batteries and we'll be back.
Okay. So I think everybody heard you. Is that mic on?
No.
Oh, that mic is on. Hello, microphone. Yes. Camera battery. Remember, we're not on the vehicle here, so we don't have the bank of batteries that the vehicle has. So we might run low on this battery, in which case we're going to have to swap batteries. So don't think we've gone anywhere. It's just changing camera batteries. Fancy cameras. I want to work one of these cameras. I've worked a lot of the other cameras before. So Dale, to finalize just your question, I'm hoping that the next time Wild Earth, the powers that be with Wild Earth, that's Graham and Will and Pete and Alex, the powers that be, when they do have the next project, I certainly hope I'm going to be a part of that, as I have been in the past, because I feel so much an integral part of Wild Earth. Wild Earth is in my blood, it's in my nature. It's part of me. I love doing this. I love being a part of this. Don from Massachusetts. Hello Don, wanting to know about the white lions in the Timbavati. Yes, there are still some white lion in the Timbavati. I suppose most importantly than actually having white lion cubs or any white lion that are around now is that the prides that they come from all carry the gene. It is a recessive gene. I believe there are some white lions that have been born up in Kruger, so it would appear that the gene pool for the recessive gene of white lions, the leucistic lion, has spread a little bit deeper into Kruger. Very interesting question from Toronto, from Brian, wanting to know about black mamba. Black mamba, now, for those of you who don't know, black mamba is probably one of our biggest venomous snakes that we get in this area. It's sort of Africa's equivalent to the king snake of India, the king cobra of India. The black mamba essentially is cobra family. It belongs to the family Elapidae, or the elapids, which are the cobras. It has a very, very powerful neurotoxic venom, and I'm just trying to expand my shorthand. Brian was asking, he believes that the black mamba is one of the only snakes that has been known to attack when unprovoked, or to do an unprovoked attack. Can't remember your wording there, Brian, but I think that's more or less what you were asking. I would say I don't really think so. I think that in most cases there's some provocation. I've been on foot with black mamba many times, and I've never elicited an aggressive reaction out of them by being on foot with them. If anything, they've become very defensive and they've moved away. The times that I've had black mambas rearing up and becoming aggressive have been when I've been in a vehicle and I've gotten a little bit too close to them too quickly, and they rear up and they want to strike at the vehicle more than any individual on the vehicle. But we are talking about temperament. We're talking about irascibility. We're talking about a snake that doesn't take much to get riled. And snakes all over the snake kingdom do vary. There are some snakes that are just very mild-tempered, even venomous snakes for that matter, that are very mild-tempered, that it takes a lot to get them angry, or angry enough that they're going to attack or try and bite. And there are some snakes that, even though they're harmless, they will try and bite at every opportune moment. So it's more about the temperament of the snake, and it's just the vulnerability of the particular snake that we're mentioning, depending on which snake it may be. I personally don't know of any unprovoked attacks from black mamba, other than perhaps in human habitation, where black mambas have been caught and cornered, and in that case it's not an unprovoked attack. Kathy in Tennessee. Kathy wanting to know about our creeks. When do the creeks run? I guess Kathy's referring to what we call drainage lines, what you might call creeks, dry creek beds, what we call drainage lines and dry river beds. They will be running. We've had some wonderful rain so far. The ground is quite damp and saturated. If we were to have a thunderstorm, a really heavy storm of anywhere, I'd say maybe 2 to 3 inches and above of rain over a very short period of time, all of that runoff that occurs from that kind of rain will run into the creek beds, will accumulate, and eventually get these creek beds running. Carol, hello Carol. Carol was asking about baboons, wanting to know if I know what happened to them. I think I addressed that earlier. Carol, I don't know what happened to the Gowrie gang. I can try and find out. I'm not sure what happened to them at all. John Q, and that's a great question too, referring to this morning. John Q, getting sun in my eyes. John Q was asking about quarantine mail this morning, how close we were to him. It's a very difficult thing to tell when it's on camera. You can't really get an idea of the proximity of the animal sometimes. But there was a moment when he came up to me and he was so close to the vehicle that when Jason tilted the camera, you can actually see the gunnel, the side of the vehicle that was blocking his feet. So how close he was probably from me to this Sansevieria, this marula tree next to me, probably about where he is. It out of frame? That good, cool. Marion, another one from Marion. These are the few that I picked up when I just ran into FC quickly. Marion was asking, are there still walking safaris available? There are. Almost all of the game lodges do walking safaris. You maybe do a morning drive and then get dropped off and walk back to the lodge. There are a number of places you can go where you can do only walking safaris. I have a friend who conducts overnight walking trails in the Kruger National Park. He does a fantastic 4-day trail along the Olifants River, which is a trail full of elephants and buffalo and lion, and you're on foot for 4 days, overnighting in small tents out in the bush. And yes, there are some wonderful trails to be done here in South Africa. Up in East Africa, there are a number of places that do either day walks or overnight walking safaris that they call fly camps or fly camping. So there are a number of places where you are able to get out on foot. And naturally, you're going to be with guides with rifles and game scouts. You're going to be with professionals who will be conducting these safaris. You can't go walking out there on your own if you don't know what you're doing. You just might as well just paint a big target on your back. Or no, might as well wear an impala skin. So those were some of those questions that came in. I'm all twittered out because I don't have a device. I need a device. I also love to know how the guys are getting on up there with the vehicle. Good to know that the mum and baby hippo are live on the Arethusa cam at the moment. Oh, insects. Here's a good question from Zoomy Mike. for Jason that Jason needs to answer. I think these are Jason's questions because Jason was here. Because, yeah, he does a pretty good job. Man. I mean, the question to Jason is how he manages to follow the quicker moving things. And it's not an easy thing to do looking through the camera. I'll let Jason answer that maybe. And beautiful sunlight coming through now. The best time of the day, and we're sitting in a garden. I'm sorry about that. But it is the bush. It is what it is. It's mechanical objects like vehicles. They break down. Things happen. Adam in Boston, would I ever camp out in a tent in the bush? I've done it many times, especially I was mentioning now these overnight walking safaris. We do camp out in the bush on overnight walking safaris. I've conducted many in Kenya, Tanzania, and Tanzania in different parks in Kenya and Tanzania. In fact, a couple of them that I've conducted in Tanzania, we barely even had tents. It was more like just a mosquito net over a mattress draped from a marula tree that we would sleep under. And it's very exciting. We sleep close to the fire. Thanks for that, Adam. Most definitely a wonderful thing to do. You can't get closer to nature than being out in a little two-man tent or under a mosquito net in the middle of nowhere, in a wilderness area, far from roads, far from anything remotely human. And all you've got around you is just an immense... I see Wendy! Test drive! I think we're going to be lucky. We're going to be up and running again, folks. I think as a team we've done a wonderful job. I managed to take everything apart. Scott and VM put everything back together again. So we've done some great teamwork this afternoon. We managed to pull it off, and we managed. By the looks of things, Wendy's up and running, and I don't think we can go out for a drive just yet. Maybe we'll get a half hour or so towards the end of drive, if we're lucky. But most definitely, by the looks of things, we'll be back on air tomorrow morning, and it's most likely will be Scott who will be driving, and Wim who will be on camera perhaps, I'm not sure, and then Scott will do the PM drive as well, and then together, being a Sunday, the two of us will join up together out on quarantine at our little house on the prairie for our Sunday evening fireside chat. And that is such a great thing to see, that thing is up and running. Just there behind me, going up and down quarantine. I love it when the plan comes together. Next, difference between the two species, the northern white rhino versus the southern white rhino. I suppose the main difference is that there aren't any northern white rhino left at all. They are history. You want to turn the camera and see this monster driving in. Cameras on the vehicle, VM at the wheel. She's running, she's up and running. I guess I might not have my books, or I might not have my binoculars, but I don't care what I don't have. We've got a vehicle. Well done, dude. Fantastic. Absolute. I love it when a plan comes together. See, this is what good teamwork does. Linda, I'm not really sure. This is Dallas. I'm sure this is Dallas, Linda. Yes, it is. Hot Dallas, Linda. Nice to hear from you, Linda. I'm not sure if there are really any physical differences between the two. I think it's more just sort of genetic differences, but they're both very similar. And Linda also wanted to know the plants in the foreground. I guess Linda's talking about mother-in-law's tongue, the Sansevieria. That's the most prominent plant that we have. There are others that are cultivated things that I don't know the names of because they come from a nursery. There's a camelina and there's a geranium. Those are the only two that I do know. So I think we're getting pretty much towards the end of our sit down in front of FC. Looks like everything is pretty much up and ready to run. How many seconds have we got? Couple of seconds. Okay. We just needed that mast at the back that needs to just be straightened a bit somehow. We were thinking of actually having a camera. I said this earlier. We were thinking of having the camera on the vehicle out there in the workshop while we were working on it, and it might have, I don't think it would have gone any quicker, because you can only fit 2 people under the vehicle to work at the same time, but we might have sort of been able to do a bit of a relay. But since it was under the vehicle, it was probably impractical to have the camera on top of the vehicle, and it would have been a little bit awkward to get the sound and everything on the camera off of the vehicle. Sort of like fireside chat, but that takes a lot of setting up, and we really wanted to be on time with you this afternoon. It is a Saturday afternoon, and it's a Christmas Saturday before Christmas. Summertime here in Africa. It's the most wonderful time for all of us. We're going to be going out shortly. I guess it'll be Jason and myself. We're going to go and find you something. Oof, I can't wait. So I'm going to leave this device now, because I don't need it anymore. Maybe while we're just finalizing everything. Valerie wanting to know about other phrases of bird calls. There are a lot actually, Valerie. There's the work harder for the Cape Turtle Dove, and there's the go away of the go away bird. There's the crested francolin, and we'll have to point it out to you because they'll be calling soon as the sun starts going down. All of the francolins and spurfowl start calling and bedding down. The crested francolin calls beer and cognac, beer and cognac. The Shelley's francolin or spurfowl drink your beer, I'll drink your beer, I'll drink your beer. I didn't make up the beer things, by the way. They were there before me. Not my... Michael, thanks Michael, saying there's still 5 northern white rhino alive. And that they hang from trees and drop down and strike you in the jugular vein. That's combining 2 of Michael's tweets. I guess Michael talking about something else on that one. But Valerie, I hope to remember some of the phrase, some of the bird calls. There is the... And it goes on a little bit longer. That's the orange-breasted bushshrike, which says, coffee, tea or me. So there are a bunch of things. There's the emerald-spotted wood dove, which is a very mournful song that goes, my mother is dead, my father is dead, all my relatives are dead. Oh woe, oh woe, oh woe. It's a bit morbid. And I think on that note, I think Vim wasn't smiling because he's been really working hard, and it is not an easy task putting that thing back together again, especially since I took it apart and I just left a whole bunch of nuts and bolts and parts lying on the ground. They had to figure out where they went and put them back again. It would have been easier if I was there to help them more, but I was here to help us to bring this in. But as I say, it's teamwork. We all have our functions, we all have our little areas that we need to do.
Marc?
Yes.
Can we rise?
Can we rise to the occasion?
Yeah.
Okay. Here's your toy. Where's my toy? Okay. I'll see you from the jigger. I mean from the vehicle. From Wendy. Zanele. I'll see you from there. And we're off to see the wizard. And we're off to see the wizard. The wonderful Wizard of Oz. Are we up and running on this?
No, we should be.
But we haven't cut to the jigger yet.
I know,
You might have to close the gate.
Control says.
Okay. I think we have to plug everything in first. Clip things to... Oh, I need some water. Okay, reading at 5, just plugging in my earphone. Okay, radio check, radio check. Yeah, reading at 5. Somebody's. Okay, here we go. You ready? Let's go for a drive. No.
This can't have happened.
Can't be this wire. I think the modifications we got, we just need to tweak our modification a little bit. Are you still on the other camera?
No, this one is on it.
This one's on. Oh. Pretty heavy duty wire you've got here. There we go. Okay, we've done a modification here that requires a little bit of finesse and a few things. So
Don't go far, don't go off-roading.
no off-roading. No, we're gonna wander around, go down to the dam or something. Okay, so we're on cam and everything here. You get the gate. Thanks. Clearly, oh, things are falling. Where are my tools? Just checking, because I've got one of my screwdrivers are here, not in my toolbox. Okay, I'll put them all back together again soon. So we're going to drive along beyond Yuri's house, and I can actually maybe find you this beautiful yellow flower that is the round leaf teak that's flowering at the moment. It's a little bit further away from the house, I think, than I remembered. There's hardly flowering anymore, it's gone. Okay, sorry folks, that's not going to happen. Maybe early morning, looks like the flowers are all closed up for the day already. Welcome to our PM Safari, finally on a vehicle again, thanks to the efforts of Marc and Jason and Scott and Wiem, and particularly Scott and Wiem for getting it all put back together again so quickly. I think it was absolutely amazing. I was getting worried thinking that we weren't going to be able to get home tonight, but it's all working great. What's also most important is that it wasn't the fuel pump that packed up, it was merely a concealed wire that somehow had burnt out. This is Viem's, maybe. I'm going to switch it off because you've got one of those. I don't know Samsung. Put it on airplane mode. So we won't go too far. Guinea fowl are going to bed already. I can remember Mishu in this very same marula tree, and I think it was the Styx pride or even the kahumas walking underneath, and I don't think they even knew that the leopard was in the tree. The same leopard that used to, with his brother, would find where the guinea fowl was sleeping at night, probably the very same flock of guinea fowl that seem to be reduced in numbers now. And they used to terrify them so much that they would force them to fly out of the tree. And a guinea fowl flying at night is not a great thing, because they not only don't see very well, they don't fly very well. And invariably, as they landed in the grass, the leopards would catch one or two of them. And it was their mother that taught them how to do that. I don't think they would have come up with that kind of thing on their own. Look at this beautiful light. So glad we managed to just catch the last bit of it. What I'd like to do, I'm not going to be able to go off-road because we've got loose wires hanging, because this is really an Audie Murphy fix. This is a real quick fix thing that we're going to but tonight when we get back to Manyaleti, we're going to have to secure and bring out the old duct tape and make sure that loose connections aren't liable to be pulled out when we're off-road. But it is, although it is a temporary fix, it has to be semi-permanent until we can deal with the issue properly. And so for now we're not going to be able to go off-road, but what I am going to do is we're going to go back to where quarantine mail was. Now, when we finally left him this morning, we weren't very far from Gowrie Cut Line. We were actually only maybe 100 yards in. We had found him here, where we are now, and he had walked virtually in a straight line, almost due east, maybe southeast. I'm just looking at our compass points right now. And when we closed off, he had actually started moving again. It was starting to get hot at him for a little while before we lost power on this. And I'm pretty sure he actually sat nearby while we were stuck. We were stuck for quite some time because I was trying to find all sorts of things. I took the fuel filter apart. I did all sorts of things trying to get us going, but of course nothing that I did would have worked. And then eventually Scott and VM came out to collect us, and that's what you would have seen. There was a picture posted, and as sad as it may be for those of us loving Land Rovers to have been towed by another vehicle, there was no option. An electrical breakdown required towing, and so we were towed across the dam wall this morning. It was probably sometime after 10 already. And we've been pretty much working on it since. Except for a breakfast break. In fact, I didn't even have lunch. I haven't had any lunch. I had some yogurt and all bran and some fruit, and that was my breakfast. So I'm looking forward to a wonderful dinner by Zanele. Zanele, who this vehicle is named after, is our house mother back in Manyaleti. Zanele has been looking after us and making sure that she's competing with our homemade mom's cooking. Anyway, getting back to Ingwe and getting back to Leopard and our little quarantine male. He ended up fairly close to this road, I'm sure he might have been disturbed with the bit of a noise that we made when we were trying to tow this vehicle out of that dense vegetation that we found ourselves in when we got stuck. But I don't think it's been such a hot day. I don't think he's moved very far, and I'm hoping that maybe he'll come out. Maybe we can see, maybe not. I mean, I'm tempted to just go off in to look for him, but I'm trying to suppress that because I really would love to. This one I'd like to show you. It's a beautiful time of the day, and I'm going to test the vehicle by switching it off. You can hear very fast orange-breasted bushshrike, coffee tea or me. Sometimes a little bit slower than that. But one of the most magnificent jackalberry trees or ebony trees that we have here at Djuma must be hundreds of years old, maybe even close to 1,000 or more. An incredible tree. Just so beautiful in this light because we're getting the late afternoon light on the crown. This. Humid, uniform temperature now, still close to degrees. Summertime. Excuse me, Dove. Thank you. No, excuse me means move out of the way. No, kind of, I mean, not land in the road, kind of out of this, that kind of out of the way. Thank you, Dove. So maybe under one of these bushes, we will find the little boy. Wishful thinking. What is life without wishful thinking? One moment. Looks like something important from some piece of equipment. I don't think it's from the vehicle. Oh, just a little rubber O-ring, a square rubber O-ring. Don't know what it could be from. Could be from a viewfinder of a camera perhaps, but it's man-made, so it needed to be picked up. The unfortunate problem with Jigga is different in that the fuel pump is still working, So that one might be a little bit more of a... I was thinking that maybe we'd just do pretty much the same thing with Jigger tomorrow, but with the fuel pump working, there's no need to take the tank out. Another electronic issue somewhere else. He's been here already. He's walked back towards the drainage line below Gowrie Dam, looks at things on top of our tracks, I think. Well, we might not have been this far. We're going to go to the end of the road. I'm going to turn around and come back this way. Maybe. Depends. Maybe we should head a little bit. Not running very smoothly, but running. I want to be in about 5 different places at once right now. Maybe 3. Which I can't. Which I guess I was going to try and get to if we were out on a drive for this afternoon. But in the short left, I guess we need to try and make as most of it. I think the bills are climbing in a headway. Had reported and if at all since I've been back. Road going back to Djuma water. I hope we got to most of your questions during our little garden chat. It's a nice thing to do if we're ever in a sticky situation again with the vehicles. I think that's what we'll do, somehow try and do something like that again. Hopefully not, but now that we know we can do it, we can be better prepared next time. Maybe I can have my books with me or a laptop. I want to sneeze and I can't sneeze. Beautiful sunset that's going to be hidden by cloud later. There's actually some stunning cloud on the horizon. Almost elephant shaped, one of them. But now we're going downhill, we might miss it. It would be nice to have a bit of a view to the west without the trees. Yeah, that big elephant-shaped cloud. Might have to close the iris a bit to see it. Here we go. Just to the left of the sun, just above the tree line. If we zoom in, there's that. Almost elephant-shaped. little bit. Yeah, there's some different apertures give a different effect. We'll monitor that in the next few minutes when we get to the top of the next rise. Binoculars, stay in my room. It's coming on the road. We're back live and we've just cut out again. Want to do your magic thing in there? I'll check this one. How uncanny is that? Vim just asked me now. He has just asked how things are the vehicle. And I said running fine, and as I said that it cut out as you came back. But I think it's... Pull that cable lightly. Not too... Is it pretty tight on the fuel pump itself, on that connector? Not again. Okay, I'm gonna just...
One more time. One more time.
One more time. I can't hear it above the modulator because of the noise of the modulator, but maybe Jason can. Can you hear the fuel pump if I... Okay, it's off now. Ignition on.
Nope.
Okay, I want you to do that for me. Excuse me a moment. Okay, one open mic. Copy.
It's this way. Oh, sorry.
Okay, just put the ignition on. Yeah, it's hard to hear above the modulator. That should be pumping now. Really?
Almost.
The ignition on. Ignition on. this pump off, I mean this fuel tank off again. And now?
One more time.
You actually don't need the accelerator because the fuel injection should get it going.
Okay. I think we're going to have to get towed again. Again?
If this machine was off, I'd be able to hear it. I can't hear a thing with the modulator. Try
Okay.
again. Leave the clutch. It's in neutral. Nearly there. It's like it's pumping on and off.
Do you want 5 minutes?
No, not really. I think it's making much difference.
Turn the modulator off.
We can. Folks, we're going to just switch off the main, all the main broadcast equipment on the vehicle. Give me the mic, please. Let me just tell them. I just want to switch off everything on the vehicle, maybe go do a loop for now, and then